Hi, welcome back to PSLE Concept Mastery for Primary 5 students. We are now going to look at ratio, which is a very simple topic, so not a very hard topic to learn. So it will take not a lot, it will take a short while, right, to go through the entire lesson. Okay, now ratio is a very easy topic, so you should try to do well for this topic. So fill in the blanks. All right, let's look at the first part. Fill in the blanks and give the ratio the simplest form. So if you look at the diagram, you can see there are triangles and circles. So what is ratio? Ratio is like a representation. So you look at the figure or the diagram, you can see there are 6 triangles. Right, 6 triangles and there are 8 circles. So if you count the triangles, there will be 6 of them. And then how do you write the ratio? Now 6 triangles is 2, right? Ratio is identified by the 2 dots. So when you use the 2 dots, it means that it's ratio. So 6 is to how many? 6 is to 8. So how do you actually call this ratio, or how do you read out this ratio? Now the 2 dots is read as something is 2, right? 6 is to 8. So when you are reading out the ratio, then how do you say properly? You will say 6 is to 8. Okay, so that is your ratio. Then how do you simplify the ratio? Like fractions, how do you simplest form? Or how do you simplify the ratio? Now, you divide by 2, right? Same as fraction. You divide by 2, and then what do you get? You will get 3, right? 3 is to 4. And that's your simplest form. So you divide by 2, right? You cannot divide by 3. If cannot, you divide by 5. So 2, 3, or 5. Alright, that's how you test to see whether can you simplify the ratio. Alright, and also the other thing is the order. How do you write the ratio in the correct order? You can see the triangles come first. So make sure that you have 6 triangles and not the other way around. So the triangle come first, and then after that will be the circle. So if you look at the next one, the ratio of the circles. So what comes first? Which is the circles. So you have 8 circles to the triangles. So 8 is to 6. So one of the mistakes that students tend to make is the order. Alright, they assume, alright, or they don't read carefully, so they write the ratio in the wrong order. Alright, so you simplify the ratio, you divide by 2 again, and that's how you get 4 is to 3. Okay, alright, let's go down to another example. Now you can see the ratio of length A. So you have to write the length A first. What is the ratio of length A? Which is 10 is to length B. So what is length B? 6. 10 is to 6. So how do you read out this ratio? 10 is to 6. Okay? Alright, then of course simplest form, you have to divide by 2 on, alright, divide by 2 for the whole ratio, and you will get 5 is to 3. Okay, next one. The ratio of length B to length A. So what comes first? Length B. So make sure you write down 6 first. Right, 6 is to 10. And of course the ratio, the simplest form. Right, so how do you show the working for the simplest form? You can draw the arrow sign. Right, you can just put the arrow sign below and then put down divide by 2. And then you will get 3 is to 5. Okay, sometimes in the ratio you will need to find the total. Alright, so for the next one, the ratio of length A to the total. So length A is 10, and what's the total? Means you have to take A plus B. So 10 plus 6, that will be 16 cm. So 10 is to 16. So you can see that every time I read the ratio, I always what do I say? 10 is to 16, 6 is to 10, 5 is to 3. That's how I read the ratio. Alright, so same thing, simplest form, divide by 2, and you will get 5 is to 8. Okay, so that's how you, this is the introduction of the ratio. Alright, so it's quite easy for the first part of the lesson. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Alright, now you get something more common, right? Something that you will see in your homework or even in your exam. So 7 is to 21. How do you change it to simplest form? Okay, now some of the teachers will do something like this. Alright, you point the arrow, alright, and then what do you get? You can divide by 7, alright, divide by 7, and then over here you also divide by 7, right? So that's one way, right? Some of the teachers may draw arrow to show how to simplify. So you divide by 7, and 7 divided by 7 is 1, and then 21 divided by 7 will be 3. Okay, that's one way. All right, you can point the arrow. Okay, now another way that you can do is usually I will do downwards because it's easier to see. All right, if you all right, if you point the arrow horizontally, it's quite hard. But if you point downwards, then I divide by 5. I divide by 5. I can see more clearly. So I will get 7 is to 8. Of course, I need to put the answer inside the blank. 7 is to 8. So what I will do is I will usually draw the working downwards, or I will usually show the working downwards. Okay, how about 90 is to 30? Now 90 is to 30. Okay, so same thing, I draw downwards. Okay, downwards. I can divide by 10 first. Right, divide by 10. And I will get 9 is to 3. And then downwards again. Right, downwards. I divide by 3. And then the other side also must do the same thing. I get 3 is to 1. So what is the missing blank? Or what is the blank? 3 is to 1. So the blank is 1. Okay, so what is the lesson here? Well, it's up to you how you want to show the simplest form. But for all my lessons, I will usually show downwards. I will show the working downwards. All right. But in school, or some of our teachers may do something like this. Okay, may do this. So 55 divided by what equal 5? 35 divided by 11 equal 5, and then you must do the same for over here. You have to divide by 11 also. So whatever you divide, you have to make sure you divide the same number. So 22 divided by 11, you get 2. So some teachers will do this way. Alright, so it's up to you. Alright, which way you like. Okay, let's go on to the next two. Okay, so like what I said, I will draw downwards. Okay, but now you can see that there's a 60, right? 60, so I put a 60 here, because 60 comes first. Alright, so no more divide already, right? It's not always dividing. So now you have to times. Child times 5 is 60. And then over here will be also times 5. So you have 60 is to 25, right? 60 is to 25. Okay, so this is your missing number. Alright, the next one looks a little more confusing. Alright, so what is to 4 is equal to 66 is to 24. So I will do something like this. Alright, I put the ratio below. Alright, and then 4 times 6 is equal 24. Alright, 4 times 6. And then over here, you also times 6, right? So you have to work backwards now. You take 66, and then you work backwards, you divide by 6, and that's how you get 11. Okay? Alright, then again, your teachers will be doing something like this. You work backwards, you divide by 6, and then here you also work backwards, divide by 6, which is also correct. Right, just a different way of doing, right? Different way of working out the answers. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Question number 7. Alright, so 7 is to what is equal to 70 is to 100. So let me just put below 70 is to 100. So 7 becomes 70. How does 7 become 70? 7 times 10, right? 7 times 10. And then the other side you also must follow. Do the same. So what times 10 equal 100? So you have to work backwards to get the blank. So 100 divided by 10. And that's how you get your missing number, which is 10. Alright, next one. 9 is to what is equal to 36 is to 20. So you draw arrow downwards. 9 times 4. Then the other side, you also have to times 4, right? Then you work backwards. You take 20, divide by 4, and you get 5. So 9 is to 5. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Alright, so now we come to word problems. So word problems are very common. Alright, you will definitely see word problems for ratio. So when you see ratio problem, then what is the lesson here? The lesson here is to write out the ratio. For example, the height of a chair is 45 cm. The height of a table is 95 cm. So find the ratio. So there's a ratio given to you. Then I will need to write out the ratio. So to write out the ratio, you have to label. Right? It's very important to label the ratio. It's like model drawing. If you don't label the model, you don't understand what is the model. You don't understand what the model is about. So you have to label the ratio, and then you can see that the height of the chair is 45 cm, and the height of the table is 95 cm. So 45 is to 95. And that's how you label your ratio. Alright, now ratio is like a representation. For example, the actual height is 45, right? The actual height of the chair is 45 cm, and the actual height of the table is 95 cm. But the moment I simplify, all right, when I simplify, what happened? I divide by 5, and here I divide by 5. What happened if I simplify? Then it become 9 is to 9 is to how many? 9 is to, so you take 95 divide by 5, so that will be 95 divided by 5, that will be 19. So you have 9 is to 19. Alright, does it mean the chair has now become 9 cm or the table has now become 19 cm? No, it means that it is a representation. It means the chair is now 9 units, right? The chair is 9 units high and the table is now 19 units high. So now you are using units to represent the chair and the table. Alright, so when you have ratio, it is a form of representation. It's not the actual height, but it is a form, it's a type of representation. So the chair is now 9 units already, and the table is now 19 units. So what's the ratio of the height of the chair to the table? So you have to write the ratio in the correct order. So what comes first, which is the chair, then the table. 9 is to 19. So that is your ratio in the, of course, in the simplest form. Okay, so this is important. When you simplify the ratio, it doesn't mean the chair is now 9 cm. It just means that the chair is now 9 units and the table is now 19 units. So it is a representation, right? It represents the height of the chair and the height of the table. Okay, let's look at one more example. Now, after cycling for 2 hours, John took a 20 minutes rest. Find the ratio of the time John spent on cycling to the time he spent on resting. So same thing, you have to label the ratio. Every time you see a ratio problem, then you need to do what? You need to write out the ratio. So cycling to the time he spent on resting. And you have 2 hours, right? 2 hours and 20 minutes. Now if you write 2 is to 20 like this, that's a mistake. Because if you look at the unit sign, alright, can you see the hours and the minutes? So you will have to change them to make them the same units. So if this is 2 hours and this is 20 minutes, what must you do? You have to change the 2 hours into minutes. So that will be how many minutes? That will be 60 times 2, which is 120 minutes, and then here remains the same. So what's the lesson here? So when you plus minus, or even when you write as a fraction, or when you write as a ratio, you have to make sure everything must be in the same units. Right? They must all be in the same unit. If they are not, then you have to make them the same. So now you have 120 minutes for cycling and 20 minutes for resting. So when you simplify the ratio, what happens? So you divide by 10, and then here you also divide by 10. So you will get 12 is to 2. And then you continue to simplify, divide by 2. So what is simplest form? Simplest form means you reduce the ratio until you cannot reduce anymore. For example, you will now get 6 is to 1. So can you reduce anymore? You can't already. So that is the simplest form. Alright, so does that mean that he took 6 minutes to cycle and 1 minute to rest? No, it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that. It means that he cycled for 6 units, right? 6 units of time. And John took 1 unit of time to rest. So now the ratio become units already, right? So it's like a representation. So what is the ratio of the time he spent on cycling? 6 to the time he spent on resting? 6 is to 1. So that is your ratio in the simplest form. Alright? Okay? So when you write ratio, it is you use units, right? Units to represent how long he take to cycle and how long he take to rest. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Okay, now you can see it gets maybe a little harder. Now, the ratio of Roy's age to Mr. Hu's age is 1 is to 4. If Roy is 8 years old, find Mr. Hu's age. So this is a ratio problem. So what do? Of course, I have to label the ratio. And I have 1 is to 4. Does that mean that Roy is 1 year and Mr. Wu is 4 years old? No, it is a representation. It means Roy is 1 unit, right? Roy has 1 unit and Mr. Wu has 4 units. So if Roy is 8 years, so if you look at Roy has 1 unit, or Roy is 1 unit old and Mr. Wu is 4 units old. And if Roy is 8 years, right, 8 years, I'm going to put a bracket below, 8 years, then what is Mr. Hu's age? So can we find that? Yes, we can. So 1 unit is equal to 8, then 4 units will be 8 times 4. So Mr. Hu must be 32 years old. So you can see that the ratio is like a representation, right? 1 unit and 4 units, 1:4. So you use the units to find out their actual age. So if 1 unit is equal to 8, then Mr. Hu is 4 units, then how old will he be, or how old is he? That will be 8 times 4. So Mr. Hu is 32 years. Okay? Alright, let's go on to another example. Okay, now the ratio of the cost of a ball to the cost of a bat was 5:9. If the bat costs $8 more than the ball, what is the cost of the ball? So every time you see a ratio problem, you will need to label ball is to bats. Alright, so what's the ratio? The ratio is 5:9. Okay, then what do we do next? Now, does that mean the ball costs $5? No, it's a ratio again, it's a representation. It means that the ball costs 5 units and the bat costs 9 units, right? Okay, if the bat costs $8 more than the ball, so you look at the ratio, can you compare these two? You can see the bat costs 9 units and the ball costs 5 units. So the bat must have cost 4 units more. So if the bat costs 4 units more, then that will also be $8 more. So your 4 units is equal to $8. It's like model drawing, right? How many units equal to how much? Then what's the next step? The next step is to find 1 unit. So you take $8 and then you divide by 4. So your 1 unit will be $2. Right? And again, the purpose of ratio, right? Using ratio to solve the problem, the purpose of using ratio is to find what is 1 unit. Same as model drawing. So once you can find 1 unit, you can find the cost of the ball because the ball has 5 units. So 5 units will be 5 times $2, and that's how you get $10. So the cost of the ball is $10. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Okay, now sometimes your ratio has three quantities, all right, 3 types of things or 3 quantities. So how do we simplify ratio like this? Same thing. Now, you look at the entire ratio, can you divide them by the same number? For example, can I divide by 2? So 4 divided by 2, and then 4 divided by 2 again, and then 6 divided by 2 as well, you will get 3. So when you simplify the ratio, you have to make sure that all the numbers in the ratio can be divided by the same number. So your simplest form will be 2:2:3. Okay, 2:2:3. That's how you read out the ratio. Okay, the next one, how do you simplify this ratio? So can you divide all the numbers inside by a common number, which is 10? So I can divide all the numbers by 10. So 10 divided by 10 is 1, 20 divided by 10 is 2, and 50 divided by 10, that will be 5. So what's my ratio? 1:2:5. Alright, so very important lesson here is when you simplify the ratio, you have to make sure that all the numbers can be divided by the same number. Alright, next one, how to simplify the ratio. So if you're not sure, you always start with 2. Can 25 divided by 2? Cannot. Then how about 3? Can 50 divided by 3? Also cannot. Then you go to the next digit or next number. Can you divide all the numbers by 5? 50 divided by 5 is 10. 25 divided by 5 is 5. 100 divided by 5 is 20. So can you divide some more? Yes, I can continue to divide by 5 again. So 10 divided by 5 is 2. 5 divided by 5 is 1. And 20 divided by 5 is 4. So what's my ratio? 2:1:4. Okay, so not that hard to simplify the ratio. Another example. So I always draw downwards, so it's easier to see. Alright, rather than okay, if you draw this way, alright, if you draw this way, then you will find that sometimes it gets a little complicated, right? It gets a little confusing. So I will prefer to draw downwards. Okay, so you divide by 5 and divide by 5, right? So 20 divided by 5, 4. 40 divided by 5 will be 8, and 45 divided by 5 will be 9. Alright, can you divide some more? Well, if you look at the 4 and 8 and 9, can you divide all of them by 2? Cannot. Can you divide all of them by 3? Cannot. Can you divide all of them by 9? Also cannot. So this will be the simplest form. So 4, 8, 9. Okay, 4 is to 8 is to 9. So that's how you simplify the ratio. And in this part of the lesson, you can see that your ratio doesn't always have to be two kinds of numbers. It can be more than two numbers. It can be even three numbers. Okay, so but then you ask me, will there be four numbers in the ratio? So far, no. Okay, so far you only have two numbers in the ratio or three numbers in the ratio. The maximum you can get is three numbers in the ratio. Okay, let's go on to the word problems. And it gets harder because you have three kinds of things, alright, three kinds of numbers here. Now, a basket contains some apples, pears, and oranges. The apples to the pears to the oranges is 4 is to 3 is to 7. And there are 28 fruits altogether. So can you find the apples in the basket? And can you find the oranges in the basket? So if this is a ratio problem, the first thing you must always do is to label your ratio. Apple is to pear is to oranges. Now, if you have noticed so far in the in the last few parts of the lesson, I've written down the ratio, but I did not put down the total. Right, there's a total in this question. Why? Why is there a total in this question? Because there's a word altogether. So do I need to have the total in my ratio? It depends on the question. If the question asks you to find total or to find altogether, then you will need to have this total in your ratio. Otherwise, you don't need to have this total. You don't have to write down this total in the ratio. But this question, there are 28 fruits altogether. Then my ratio must have the word total. So I have 4 is to 3 is to 7, right? And what is the total number of units, right? It doesn't mean there are 4 apples, 3 pears. No, they are representation. They are just a representation, which means that there are 4 units of apples, there are 3 units of pears, there are 7 units of oranges, and altogether there are 14 units of fruits altogether. So it's just a representation, right? It's not the actual number, right? It doesn't represent the actual number. And there are 28 fruits altogether. This is the important number, or I call it the actual number. So can I find how many apples in the basket? Yes, you look at the ratio, you can see that 14 units is 28, right? 14 units is equal to 28. Then your 1 unit will be 28 divided by 14. So your 1 unit will be 2. So if 1 unit is 2, there are 4 units of apples. 4 units of apples. So that will be how many apples? 4 times 2, and you will get 8 apples. Okay? And that's how you do part A. So how many oranges are there in the basket? So you can see there are 7 units, right? 7 units of oranges, which is a representation. So the oranges represent 7 units. So how many is 7 units? 7 times 2. So there are 14 oranges, and this is the actual number, or I call it the important number. All right, the important number, which is the exact. All right, this is the actual number of oranges. Okay, so lesson here. Do I need to put the total in the ratio? Do I need to put this inside? It depends on the question. So if the question never asks you to find total, or there's no total mention, there's no altogether mention in this problem, then you don't need to put the total in the ratio. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Now, a bouquet of flowers consists of roses, daisies and lilies in the ratio 5 is to 6 is to 8. And then you have 10 stalks. Okay, 10 stalks of the bouquets, 10 stalks of the bouquet are roses. So how many stalks of lilies are there? And how many flowers are there altogether? So there's an altogether in this ratio problem. Then your ratio must have the total. So you label roses. So when you solve any ratio problem, you have to remember to label. Okay, label your what is what. So roses is to daisies is to lilies, and there is a total in the ratio. So you have 5 is to 6 is to 8, and the total will be 19. So there are 19 units of flowers altogether. Okay, now 10 stalks are roses, so which is the important number, right? 10 stalks are roses. So what does that mean? It means that there are 5 units of roses. Okay, 5 units, and your 5 units is also equal to 10. So you can find 1 unit, which is 10 divided by 5. So 1 unit is 2. So how many lilies are there? So lilies, there are 8 units. So 8 units will be 8 times 2. So there are 16 lilies, right? 16 stalks of lilies. And that's how you use the units to help you to get the answer. Alright, how many flowers are there altogether? You can see that there is a total of 19 units in the ratio. So if 1 unit is 2, then 19 units will be, you take 19 times 2. So there must be a total of 38 stalks of flowers altogether. And that's how you alright, that's how you solve it very easily. So ratio problems are quite easy to handle. They are not very hard. Alright, so the only mistake, the common mistakes that you will make will be you put the ratio in the wrong order. Alright, so you put the numbers wrongly, or you ordered the numbers wrongly. So you have to be careful when you arrange the numbers. You have to look at the correct order. What is to what? So what is to what? You have to make sure you don't get confused. Okay, so otherwise ratio is a very easy topic. You just have to know how to simplify the ratio, and you just have to remember to label your ratio. What is label? It means that you must have this. You must label the ratio with some letters, and then just remember that ratio is a form of representation, right? And you use units to represent the different kinds of things, right? So you have 5 units of roses, you have 6 units of daisies, 8 units of lilies, and there are total 19 units. But when you do your homework, do you need to show the units in the ratio? You do not have to show the units in the ratio. You just have to write 5 is to 6 is to 8 is to 19. So there's no need to show the units, but you have to be aware that the ratio are units. You call them units. Okay, and then once you know how many units, then you can find 1 unit, which is the purpose, right? The purpose of ratio, using ratio to solve. You find 1 unit, and once you can get 1 unit, then you can solve the problem, right? When you're asked to find 19 units, right? 19 units will be how many? 19 times 2, 38. So that's how you solve ratio problems, which is not very hard. Okay, so we come to the end of this ratio topic. Now in the next topic, we'll be doing volume, right? Volume. So stay tuned to the next PSLE Mastery lesson. All right, see you next week.